Is that working? Hey everybody, we are on board. Is everybody hear me okay? Okay, there we are, everybody. Hey, wanted to hop on. I had a little bit of some technical difficulties this morning, but I was over on the Cameron's Canyon there, and yeah, I apologize. I do not have a whole lot of insight into bugs and into the issues that we're having there. I know. Um, oh, it looks like not. You know what? I got some reading to catch up here on this. Um, yeah, Ness is right. My focus is largely going to be games, narrative, and the development process that's going on right there. And so Ness is actually a great guy to talk to about that stuff. He's usually got the plug-in on that. And while I'm willing, I mean, I guess in this channel we can talk about ways to resolve things, cool creative ways to do that. Yeah, I'm not a good insight for those fixes there. So I wanted to dive into a couple things with you all. So first and foremost, we've got some Paint Olympus is the current name that we're running with for our Olympus paintball game. And I wanted to kind of show you some different type treatments that we've given for that. I know. Here's the funny thing: just the term Paint Olympus might sound kind of on the nose, I guess you could say. But I've got this graphic idea where I was like, what if it was like kind of strung together as one word? The O in Olympus is kind of like a big target, and it's splattered with paintballs, so it's kind of a little more clear. But we could have some element of the kind of Greek spin that we're giving to everything. So let me pull up some of the samples that I've been seeing. All right, so let me show you and these are very sample. These are very much just kind of stand-in ideas that I just wanted to get out so to get your thoughts on them. So let me. Okay. So this is one of the first ideas. Again, very stand-in just to get that idea. This breaks it down into two. This one is very approachable, at least this when it's shrunk down and smaller. What I definitely want to do is have more of these paintballs kind of splattered across the rest of the word, and then maybe like crossed underneath two of the weapons. We want to make sure that this just still feels modern. It still feels, energetic. But I want to have, do you guys remember that green, kind of cool fantasy pistol we had last time? I thought it would be cool to have two of those like kind of crossed underneath. So, Ashley says, yeah, Pega, like Paint Olympics, looks a little robotic and paint dripping everywhere. 100%. Yeah. And I'm thinking too, since last time we talked about this idea of the paint being kind of like energized, godly, magic fluid, basically. We'll try to avoid the term magic fluid. I don't know if that's a good one that we're gonna go with. Having that dripping like off letters, but having it like little maybe a glow on it, or maybe even like little like crackles of lightning kind of following along that. And so then we've got another. Ness, do you have the other one that he sent us? I know he just sent us one this morning. Okay. because he actually, I gave a little feedback on this one, and we got a little bit something that was maybe a little closer, I guess you could say, to the idea. I think you guys will like. You might have sent that through. Okay, keep looking for that. Um, ah, all right, everybody. Apologies for the search here. I minimized it. There we go. Yes, that's it. Thank you, Ness. Let me get that shown up here. This is going to be a little closer to what I was thinking. It's still a little jumbled. But this is closer to a little bit closer to what we're thinking. This again, this is a rough pass, but this is the layout. I want to grow the size of the O right there, and maybe get rid of the actual character there. Although I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think it's cool having an actual character with this kind of weapon stuff going on right there? Or what are our thoughts? Feels like the L of Olympus needs to drop behind a little bit, lots more paint. Yeah, yeah, I would love to have the O. That's a great point. That's the O overlapping. I think I still want to see the O like as a target. I think this is a little too much paint. I want to have that paint splashed all over the letters and some bits there. But I think by turning it into a kind of its own word, it kind of owns its own space right there. I think anybody who's looking for a paintball type game will get that that's what's going on here. But I want to communicate that it's got its own little splash as well. Midnight Cat, yeah. I agree. Midnight. The colors, I want them to be more of that kind of glowing magical color on there. Um, and but I think this is at least getting a little bit closer than the previous one where they're stacked on top. But we'll see. Just so I want to kind of just have an open gate so you can see our creative process as it's going here. So yeah, we should create something to test and post again. Yeah, honestly, as we get new versions of this, I'll post it in Cameron's Canyon there, so we can all get in and kind of give our vote on that. I love. There's something powerful about finding a great logo that when it lands, everybody will just be, that's it right there. I mean, there will always be dissenters. I can remember a little bit of my history. One of the first gaming studio I co-founded was called Chair Entertainment, and we love that name for the gaming studio because I mean, some of us had just gotten out of college and studied philosophy, and there's that Socrates' theory of forms, and this idea that for every chair that's out there, there's a pure chair. There's the essence of chairness, and while all these other game studios had these Rockstar Games and these big bombastic names. We're like, we like that it's subtle, but how are we going to communicate that? And we were sitting around sketching out ideas, and somebody wrote chair with the H in the word chair was just a lowercase h, and it was shaped like a chair. We're like, there was a moment of silence in the room, like it would just landed, and that's actually the studio we went on to make Infinity Blade with, in case any of you are gamer historians. But yeah, so it feels like we're getting there with this. But I think the major points of expanding the O, making it overlapping the rest of the word, and maybe we put the warrior that's on the left, we put one matching on the right. I like symmetry in logos like that. So anyway, you guys get it. All right. Stop messing around. So I don't know if Ness communicated this to you. We still are uh, waiting on some of the most important bits here, and I know that's the frustrating information to get, but the code for Berserk is still being chewed through. This is always the case whenever you shift from one dev team to another. I want to make really clear. It's basically, imagine somebody. What is a super clumsy metaphor for this? Yeah, you had a team that was working on a puzzle, and they're going to hand that puzzle off to you, but they're going to give it to you in pieces. And so you know it all goes together. You know all those pieces are there, but a lot of times there are tools and elements and processes in place that just have to be reworked. And especially when you're working in the Web3 environment, because you've got a whole another degree of security, I guess, and coding that goes into that. So I apologize on that. We don't have much going on right there. So for Tartarus, we've made some big movements there. In fact, I can't share a lot of this with you right now, but I've gone in and done a series of armor and gear, and the stuff that we're looking at how to apply it as an NFT. Moving in, the I've got a narrative that we're working on for Tartarus that I think is going to be interesting. So let me run this past you. Names and everything else are going to be tricky, but hey, you guys know we like stories and we like telling stories here. So we've got the two sons of Mars, of the god of war, are ironically enough named Meadows, which is cool, but his other son is named Terror. We're like, oh, we gotta lean on that. So what if they decide to rebel, and they decide, you know what, Tartarus has been under the boring management of Pluto or Hades, whichever name we're going to go with right there. That, which is something else we need to lock in, and we're gonna take it back. We're gonna turn it into a battleground. We're gonna turn it into a warrior factory. And so they move against Pluto. They unleash new armies of different types. I'm saying the both Terror and Metis they're the gods of different types of fear. Terror is the adrenaline, panic, horrified fear, and Metis is the despair. And so I'm thinking they each come with different types of armies. If Metis comes with more of an undead, ghoul, zombie sort of despair-based fear, that's the first wave. Terror is more of a fiery demon monster, sort of a fear. And then we can have various subclasses. As we move through parts of Tartarus, I think we can increase the difficulty. We've talked about this, and the type of enemies you fight, and the type of gear that you get changes. And so I'll present more about this next week. I'm still bouncing it off them for feasibility. But imagine when, okay, I've defeated part of the undead portion of Tartarus, and I have now got the skull helmet and the rib cage, armor, and I've got the all of the gears kind of themed around that, and it's stuff that we're thinking once you want it, you can actually wear it up into Vulcan versus something you show off, and then you go deeper, and now you're coming back with the horned demon mask and the spiky, magma, lit shoulder pads, and that shows you've gone even deeper, And so we're thinking about having this seasonal narrative content where the movement against these two rebel sons of Mars, and how you're trying to assist, maybe even rescue Pluto and Hades or bring him back into power, is going to play out. So anyway, I've been talking for a while here. Let's see what we've been saying. Oh boy, okay. So we've got our feedback on Pain Olympus. Okay, so yeah, these are the Tartarus nuggets here. So yeah, a little bit more work required on Berserk. So yeah, Peg, that we're not rewriting it all from scratch because there's so much that is good there already. We don't, that would take even longer, and because we want to build off of things that the players that you guys already own and already trust. Um, and Peg says, I love playing Tartarus, but I really hope it will link into some kind of success and team spirit rather than pure earning. Yes, okay. I'm very glad that you put that, Peg. We've talked about, and there's been some discussion on Cameron's Canyon about turning it into a kind of a group raid, something where you can go in with a bunch of different allies, that you go in and you can even get complementary weapon loadouts, so that while one of you might have the long distance bow and arrow, another one has a mid range spear, another one has a mace or something like that, and that um, there a way to balance that out so that you are best suited to kind of take on all comers. I know when I'm down there, and I've been hammering away at the goblin creatures there for a while. All of a sudden, coming against the guys that are shooting the lightning bolts at me, it's a huge shift. And how cool would it be to be armed for, okay, my ally here has got that sort of thing. So let's see, we've got story is cool, Cam. We also want skill-based gameplay, be able to show others our skill in real time. Astro, 100%. That's why you have these sorts of games. The the Web3 world is full of games that are very much dice roll type games or even strategy type games, and we've got some of those as well. That's one of the things I love about the Vulcan Forge lineup, is that we do have games where, like, you can just be good. I would love for somebody who is just excels at the unique type of melee and first person shooter movement, can absolutely excel, can absolutely master this game. I want to have an array of games in the Vulcan Forge library that vary from tactical, very intellectual, to absolutely twitch, quick adrenaline sort of games, so that you can think, I'm going into the Vulcanverse to scratch whatever gaming entertainment itch I've got. Also, the sort of thing where you could say, hey, I've got this buddy who's curious about Web3 gaming and what it means. I know the perfect game for him or her in our library. I think that's something we're aiming for sure. We see Berserk Code is a complex the game. Actually, I think a team of three would be perfect for Tartarus. Yeah, you know what, Peg? In my mind, I'm thinking three. Just to, I don't want to get as complex as a World of Warcraft raid, where you've got an army of tanks, army of healers, an army of different types of DPS. I'd really like to do a almost kind of rock paper scissors of their abilities, and that different enemies, as you come across them, are and granted, I still want you to be able to play this game solo, but I want it to be a game that is maybe faster. Maybe you feel more badass going in with your trio. Maybe we even come up with some narrative element, like a chosen triarch or a triumvirate or something like that, plays into that adventure. And here's the fun thing: as we get this stuff figured out, like if this stuff really works in Tartarus, it's something we can absolutely play with in Paint Olympus as well, because we know that Paint Olympus is kind of like the training ground for young gods, and it should be an interesting tactical thing to say, oh, practice with your triumvirate in Paint Olympus before going down into the depths of hell, to see what's happening right there. Oh yeah, I've also got a little cinematic intro, some intro dialogue to Tartarus. We're really playing with this idea of um, giving a good, what's known as a FATUI, a first time user interface, to every one of the games. So you're not left to yourself when you get in there. You have some element of how your character is tied to those, and how your character, what's your motivation for being there in the grander scheme of the universe. And so for Tartarus, for instance, you're going to be walking around in the Vulcanverse, and we'll have Cadmulus, who's kind of our MC, saying, "Hey, we've had alarming reports of things happening down in Tartarus. Can you meet me over at the gate to the underworld, which will have its lone location in the Vulcanverse?" You get there, and we're talking about a possible interaction because we know we love the spiderlings and we think they're kind of a cool creepy element that already exists. Playing it into them and maybe Arachne as the and that's the Greek word as the as she's heard these rumors, help is needed. Pluto or Hades has put out a call for an assistance, and that's where we get our mission to go down in. So again, so you get down with the feeling of being charged to go there, and then I also wanted to talk about. I actually wanted to ask you all. If we do these cinematics, we're already about to finish off this first one for the entrance to Vulcanverse. I've always thought I hate when I go through a cinematic and maybe I had something going on behind me or I click out of it too soon and I wanted to go back and see it. So I've always liked when games have a cinematics like menu, like you can click on this maybe in the older seasons and watch the cinematics so you can get caught up on the story stuff. So I'm thinking the first time you play through, you get the cinematic, but then it opens up this cinematics menu. So anything we play will allow you to go through and watch that. Okay, looks like I'm missing some stuff. Okay, one equipment only is cool for our players. All right, we're talking. Okay, we've got some Nestful questions. Cameron, the last announcements about XP rework said that it will have 100 plus maybe levels. What will be the end level? Becoming impersonating one of the gods in the game. So like a race to become a god. Yes, yes. That's where we're heading with this. I mean, if you are any game that has a universe that you're leveling up in, you eventually are going to be comparing your powers at level 60 to level 1. You're godlike. You're calling down lightning bolts. You're doing unstoppable, melee rushes and everything else. We have a game where gods are a thing. Like, why not absolutely lean in towards doing that? Now, I don't know if it's going to be a case of going in and like literally taking the crown from Mars or from Jupiter, or and saying, well, now I am the god of war. But maybe opening up some other, might be interesting to open up some other like slots of this. For instance, if we have some end game battle with Terror and Metis, by the way, would it be something where the highest scoring players can actually take upon the role as the god of terror? Would you want to be the god of terror, or do we open up to a little more creativity? Would you like to choose your godly sphere of influence? What if I put together a list of 100 different things that one might be have the godly divine stewardship over? What would be your interest in that? Okay, Astor wants real-time XP in Tartarus, just like you forge Mythic. All right. Make fighting Volks as valuable as foragers. Interesting. And then yeah, what would it be like to have a wipe happen in VV? Yeah, that's a tricky one because you know it's you want to be very careful with that because you definitely want to make it seem like anytime you're up in against an enemy that there's a risk of dying, of losing, and that there will be a cost to that. You don't want to be so prohibitive about that though that it becomes you're going to throw your controller at the screen or kick your monitor. And so that's something we're going to need to balance. I know that and again, I apologize to refer to World of Warcraft so often, but it's such a great parallel for this. Before World of Warcraft, in most MMORPGs, when you died, you were kicked out of your body. Your body was dumped on the ground. Other players could come and ransack your corpse. They called it corpse looting for any of you old school gamers back in the day. In fact, sometimes if they were really mean, they would sit and they would camp. They do a corpse camp over your body and wait for you to come back and spawn so they could kill you again. It was and different games like did different things. Like they gave you a little minimal period of invulnerability, but some of them were like, well, hey, if you died, it's supposed to suck, right? So one of the huge innovations that I don't think is talked about a lot that World of Warcraft did is they made dying not such a calamity. If you died, You could go back to the graveyard and just respawn there with your body with a little bit of an XP hit, or you could go back to your body and grab it, and you were invulnerable until you could run out of the space. They made it so it was less damaging, less dangerous, less I hate this game so much of an experience. And it just turns out it really worked for a lot of people. So dying was a part of the game rather than a horrible, destructive, loss of all the stuff you worked for. So, okay, so let's see. We're going. Every player would like to have their godly spirit, and of course, it will define the personality and change the journey. I agree. Yeah, it could be something we move to settlements. I agree, Ness. In some games, the fear of losing anything will make the game alive. So yeah. What are settlements, Lump? I mean, Ness, should we dig in on these? It is something that is still very much in process right now, and I've mentioned this before. This idea of opening up kind of the wilderness of the Vulcan verse, so that settlements are like the safe places. They're the towns and villages where properties exist and where things are a little safer, I guess. But if you can wander out in between them, and that's like your forest, your wilderness. That's where we can have wandering monsters. That's where we can have stuff that you can't actually own this land. It's been untamed, sort of thing. It's basically places where quests can be responded to. And so then maybe settlements, maybe if you've been killed out there, you respawn in the settlements, I think is what Ness is saying. So it's we've actually got some maps drawn up, and we're really playing with this idea of opening up the Vulcan verse to be a little more wild and a little more just a little bigger, I guess you could say. So we'll have more about that. Again, I apologize. This week, we've got a lot of exciting things that are very much in transition, and we had to talk before this. How much of this can we talk about? And there are just too many things we're waiting on a final sign off on from these teams. So, yeah, let's see. So yeah. Ness, do you have the link to that previous announcement? I mean, I guess if we've already put that out, I'd feel safe sharing that and talking about that. Okay, he's gonna grab that real quick. And so, another thing we've been talking about a lot is with Paint Olympus. I really think Paint Olympus is going to be kind of an interesting training ground for different types of gameplay. Last time we talked about having actual like statues, idols dedicated to different gods in the battlefield, that if you go to, you can swap out the paint or this, the divine liquid, whatever we're calling it, and give your weapon some different type of power, right? And so if you are, for instance, talking with Artemis, like goddess of the hunt, and you get the weapon, it turns it into more of a arrows that trap. Maybe it's nets or things where you can trap somebody and hold them in place for a little bit. If you get the arrows from Jupiter or Zeus, they're lightning bolts, and they can either stun the character or supercharge the character, or we talked about the Vulcan like magma paint itself. When you shoot it at a character, that it actually like makes it so they can't aim, like covers them with magma or something like that. Just these ideas. And seeing if that actually works out in these statues can now become kind of fortress points where maybe your team will defend a certain one because you really like that paint better, or maybe you'll use it as an opportunity to take advantage of players as they run up to it. And what will that do? Should we make these like capture the flag elements on the map as well? And we're going to see if that really works in Paint Olympus. Do we continue that down in Tartarus? Are there shrines to different gods down there? But now, instead of funny kind of comedic paint slow down elements, we get a little more vicious in them, where now your weapon's charged by the power of Zeus, calls down a lightning storm. Maybe there's a damage over time thing. So let's see, we've got some talks here. Can we rent areas of land in the future to the team or Vulcan to build things on? Interesting idea. Interesting idea. I've not played with that idea. We want to make Lumpy says, please make VV 3 times bigger. Yeah, it needs to be bigger. I think one of the big advantages to having a massive there's a reason that it's an MMORPG, it's a massively multiplayer game, is this feeling of exploration. You want to feel like there's a new land. I might be the first player to ever come across this land, or see this view, or find this monster here. And I think that's part of the reason why we're looking into this. Yeah, need more POI for sure inside each quadrant. Yeah, bigger plots. I think for both the devs and the players, that it's an obvious win to be able to expand that out. We need to look and see how that's going to affect the economy as well. But I know it is literally one of the principal elements of a good MMORPG is having those vast unexplored tracts of wilderness, and that experience of coming across a monster that you're going to like brag to your friends about, that you're going to say, maybe it absolutely like slays you and you've got to go back into the settlement and rally other players to come help you take that down. That's the thing that I think transforms this into something that I think would be a more interesting game for anybody else to play. So, all right. Ness, were you able to find the? Would love to show off some of that that settlement map sample you did. Oh wait, I think you just gave me a link to it. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right. So this is just this is very much a kind of teaser image. Hold on, let me save this. Because I think this will give you some idea of what we're talking about. And some of you may have seen this already. Okay, this is kind of the idea that we're talking about here. So you can see we've still got our plots of land. We've got our grids right there. But now there are these interesting places with cool names across the map there. And I see this and I'm immediately inspired on ways to create adventure, on ways to, now there's a reason for me to become a god, a way for me to get inspired to to do more than just grind, right? And that's the whole point of what we're trying to do. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, the exploration feel like Age of Empires, walking or sending the hound to explore the land. Exactly, Peg. The meta ball will full point everywhere, so like Splatoon style now. Yeah, kind of. I mean, we're playing with the idea, Scory, of the like I mentioned several times in this already, of it being, it's not paint so much as it is divine fluid. I got to find a better term than that, but it's something that has been blessed by the gods, and so each different color has a different effect on gameplay. It's basically us taking paintball and turning up the dial, essentially. Nectar is great. Yeah, maybe we call it, what is their ambrosia, I think is the term. So maybe, yeah, that actually, honestly, Astro, you're going to get 10 design points right there because giving it an actual name, the nectar of the gods, they call ambrosia, right? I'm going to type it. Like, look up that term. It's an absolutely legitimate, like, mythological liquid, and it doesn't sound like divine fluid, which is going to get me in trouble. So, okay. I hereby let it be known, ambrosia is the name of the paint in Paint Olympus. See, talk about like knocking it out of the park. That's why I love having these sessions, is the brainstorm situation that we're going on here. I mean, the simple fact is, you guys are on our creative team, and and we jamming for sure. Anyway. Okay, no, that like, and here's the fun thing. Like, now that we've thought of it in that term, it would be interesting to, okay, let's bounce this idea. What if each of these gods, is responsible for supplying this energy to infuse this ambrosia? But what if ambrosia was actually a resource, or was something that you could gather resources to create, to build? And that you can literally load that into a Paint Olympus game, so that your statues are more fruitful, or deliver more, or maybe it's more a case of, if one of these ambrosia bottles is like a clip, if you've been gathering more, you have a clip of 10 shots instead of a clip of 5. It might be an interesting thing that we can play with this. I love actually bringing an element of, if you want to call it grinding or resource gathering, into affecting your play style as well. So yeah, ambrosia, not funky god fluid. And use the O from ambrosia. That's great. We have alchemy in the Vulcanverse already. It's perfect. So yeah, that's midnight. That's what I'm thinking. You forage in Vulcanverse for Paint Olympus supplies. They're basically ingredients for ambrosia. And as I recall, ambrosia was a drink that was, I think it had it was honey and kind of fermented hops, maybe like a beer. I'll have to look up some ambrosia and check with our ingredient. But how cool would it be if you've got to find the golden bees of Hephaestus or something like that, or and there are these certain bees that provide a more powerful ingredient to build this up. And then, Lumpy, that's interesting. If you've got the Tavern NFT, that allows you to construct it, to create ambrosia. So this is actually really cool. So then you have to level up your tavern to make the best ambrosia. And in fact, having your tavern blessed by gaining favor, or gaining points with these different gods, means that your tavern, now that it has been blessed by Vulcan, by Zeus, by Mars, gives you the ability to construct those differently charged vials of ambrosia. All right. This is actually really cool. This is actually a great idea. Very story focused, very myth focused, and I think brings in a whole new element into. Honestly, I think for somebody who was just wanting to play the more grimdark heaviness of Tartarus or Royale, seeing all this excitement about the ambrosia might actually draw more players into playing Paint Olympus as well. And then yes, 100%, the quadrants of the Vulcanverse should each have their own special ingredients that are used to build that different ambrosia types. Okay, well, here's how this is a good idea. I can't wait to actually get back and do a write-up on this. And Jamie loves when I do these write-ups, because I do a whole lot of art and everything else like that to pitch this to the team. But I'm officially naming you all official ambrosia brewers and co-devs with us on this, because that's a really great idea. And Yeah, and that's kind of all we wanted to cover. I was actually planning for this to be a shorter AMA, but that's how these happy accidents happen. So you got your alcohol license. You got to be licensed. Nobody under 21 is going to be allowed near the ambrosia, of course. All right. Are there any other questions? Any other thoughts here that before we break away for next time? All right. In fact, you know what? I tell you what, I'm going to do this document and I will share it next time about ambrosia and its use in Paint Olympus and across the game as well. How does that sound? So I want you guys to see the work being put in here. Sound good? All right. I'm seeing some hearts here. All right, everybody. If you don't have any other questions, yeah, we'll post it in the canyon for sure. I might even bring it to the next AMA so I can walk through. I'd love to show you how I document these ideas and how they go from this kind of a conversation that we're having to something that is actionable with the team. We're all about this transparency here. So, okay, everybody. Hey, y'all have a great week. Thanks for helping us build this universe. You're a very important part of that. And we will be in touch.